the Everything But Politics podcast.
What's up, friends? Happy Monday, and welcome back to another edition of the Everything But Politics podcast. This week's guest is Joe Bartnick. Anyone who has seen Joe's work knows he's one of the funniest fucking comics out there, and we're excited to have him on our show and share some laughs. So, Joe, how we doing, brother?
Oh, we're doing great. You guys are too kind. Are you guys in the same house? You live in your mom's house?
No. I live here in Boca Raton, down South Florida, where I saw you recently had a show, and Evan goes to Indiana University.
Oh, IU. I was up there. That's a great place.
I saw you. You were hilarious.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I went on the court and threw a chair for old time's sake.
So Joe, here's my question for you, right?
The hard-hitting questions are coming early.
Totally. Already a Pittsburgh kid like yourself. How do you even get involved in this world of comedy? Pittsburgh's not necessarily known for its comedy scene.
No, it's getting one, though. It is getting one. But yeah, when I was a kid, now there was no comedy scene. You want to go to a coffee shop. What are you, gay? We got coffee right here. I mean, come on. I just always I wanted to be David Letterman, and then I wanted to be Dennis Miller. So I just always wanted to be a comedian. I never did not want to be a comedian. So I just had to figure out how to do that. And so I saw Robin Williams live at the Punchline. So I moved to San Francisco and got a job at the Punchline. And then from there, you have to move to either New York or LA. And I love New York, and I go there a ton, especially before the pandemic. But I had a wife and a kid. Easier moved to LA. I'm a California guy now. And then that's where we're at.
Awesome. And, growing up, were you like the class clown type of kid, or did you kind of grow into that role as you got older?
I was always funny. I remember when I went to Catholic school, my first day in Catholic school, this kid goes, this school wasn't fun until you got here. So I don't know. I was just always in trouble. I don't know if I was really the class clown.
And besides David Letterman, who are some of like your favorite inspirations in comedy?
Definitely Eddie Murphy, Delirious.
Yeah.
I'm 54. So most comics between either 3 or 4 years older than me or 3 or 4 years younger than me, that was our Beatles on Ed Sullivan that produced like every rock and roll band for the next 20 years. Like everybody my age saw that and was just like, oh my God, Eddie Murphy is the greatest. Because before that, all the comics were just like, other than like Richard Pryor, every comic was like in a suit and tried to do 8 minutes and tried to be on Johnny Carson and was Mr. Squeaky Clean. And you just see Eddie Murphy come out in that red suit and just have come out after the Bus Boys and just crush. And it was like he was the coolest mother. Can we swear?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just the coolest motherfucker ever. Still is. I mean, it's Eddie Murphy. So
well, Joe, it is crazy because obviously like the landscape has changed so much. You mentioned that back in the day you'd hope to see these guys on late night talk shows, but now you go on a podcast, you learn about someone through a TikTok or Instagram reel, YouTube. How do you think the life as a comedian has changed since the emergence of things like YouTube, TikTok, podcasts?
It's made our lives hell.
Okay. Why so?
Well, I mean, it's helped out a lot of comics, and a lot of comics have got a lot of great things from it. And I have nothing against anybody getting anything from the internet. But when I got into comedy, we'd be able to sleep in, go get a late breakfast, have a coffee, write some jokes, hang out, and then go do shows and just get drunk and sleep in. And now you got to get up, you got to make videos, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to edit videos, you got to have followers, you got to do a million things. Before, being a comic was almost like a lifestyle, and now it's a job.
Is that so? You're saying if social media wasn't as prevalent as it is, you could just continue that old cycle and kind of people find out about you from your shows?
Yeah, it used to be all word of mouth and just, I mean, there was gatekeepers, the guys who booked Letterman or booked the Tonight Show or, booked comedy clubs. They were, they kind of controlled your fate. And that's the way it was. Or, some people were proactive, Dane Cook or Lisa Lampanelli, and they got mailing lists. And I was doing some of that. But in general, like, it wasn't our job to promote. It was our job to be funny. And that's what it was. And then, but I don't even care about the promoting part. It was just, now people want content constantly. And before, it was like the content was what I did from 8:15 to 9:15. The rest of the 23 hours a day were mine. Now it's like, it seems like it's a job.
Joe, something I'm curious about is like life as a stand-up. Obviously, if you're a musician, you go, there's after parties and shows after the show. Is that do you as a comedian, do you have that after you perform 8:15, 9:15? Is there an 11:30, 12:30 thing where you're performing again and again?
Well, in major cities, you perform more than one set a night. So yeah, I mean, in New York, you do like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sets a night. I mean, I used to before the pandemic. If I didn't do 4 sets, if I only did 4 sets, I felt like I was lazy. Now I'm a little bit older, so now 4 sets is good. But I used to be people. I mean, people used to do minimum 6 sets every night in New York. I think there's a few less clubs now, but I don't. I'm sure they still do. But yeah, in San Francisco, where I started, we used to do a couple sets every night, and then you'd hang until 3 in the morning every night. And my one buddy would say, "You learn more after the show than you ever learned during the show," because comedy used to be a big hang, but now so many guys are sober, or so many guys are California sober, or so many people play video games. Or before, everyone was just an alcoholic like me.
And how old were you when you started being?
I was 27.
20, and you started in New York.
San Francisco.
And what was your first show?
Well, my first show was a place called the Luggage Store, where almost everybody in San Francisco has started. And me and 2 comics, we were still friends. We started the same night. But my class kind of in San Francisco was Brian Kellen, who works with George Lopez everywhere, and Al Madrigal, and Gary Cannon, and Rob Cantrell, and Steve Maison. And basically, there's the class above me, the class beneath. Class right after me is Louis Katz, and Chris Tinkle, and Ryan Stout, and a couple other people. And then after them was Ali Wong. And so, it's just, and there's just classes and classes of people. Now there's 10 classes after me, 15, who knows?
Yeah.
But we all used to hang out and go to these different restaurants and in delis and bars, and just, it was used to be a hang. Now everyone's like, you hang, but now, oh, well, hold on, stand here and make sure you're in my video shots. I can put it up on TikTok. And
Yeah.
a lot of things are staged now that all used to be natural.
Yeah, well, and Joe, you mentioned you started stand up at 27. What were you doing in your early 20s?
Doing a lot of stuff.
You ever get on stage when you were like 21, 22 or not?
No. I mean, I bartended, I was bouncer, I did some other dirt, and just all kinds of stuff.
Okay. And so there's some shows that Evan and I love, like the Curbs, South Park, Arrested Development, shit like that. Are there any shows that you grew up with that maybe sparked your interest in comedy?
Well, I mean, Seinfeld's like the greatest show ever.
Yeah,
and he's a comedian.
Yeah, I've been watching all that stuff.
His show, the one that made me want to do I mean, Letterman pretty much was what always wanted me to do comedy. I like Saturday Night Live, but I'm not a sketch guy per se, so that wasn't really my cup of tea. I think that would push me the more to do stand up would be Seinfeld, because he made you think that you could be a comedian and afford a nice apartment in a nice neighborhood in New York.
Now, Joe, when I saw you in Bloomington, I thought you were hilarious. And I gotta ask, how did you get involved opening with Bill Burr, and what's your relationship with him now?
Well, I mean, me and Bill are great friends, and he helped produce my special on All Things Comedy's YouTube page and Prime. So if you're if you have money, watch it on Prime. If you want to watch it for free, it's on YouTube. And I was in his movie Old Dads that came out, number one movie in the world for about a month. Still might be. But I opened for him in San Francisco like 20 years ago, and he liked my sets, he liked my act, and we just became more and closer friends. And we used to do all kinds of fun things together and go sporting events and all kinds of good times. And we're just good friends.
Well, Joe, I saw your stand-up special at Killing in Chicago. It was fucking really funny. But my favorite joke that you said was one about your daughter going to kill herself. Like, no, just pay for the braces. You got to hold up all of that.
Yeah, people like that one. Thank you. Thanks for all your nice words. You guys are nice kids.
Funny.
Are you guys gonna come see me on New Year's Eve? Or I'm at Sadman's in Boca Raton Friday, Saturday, Sunday, New Year's Eve weekend.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, we're gonna have to put this to the calendar.
Bring as many friends as you can and girls.
You got it. That's awesome. Wait, so Going back to what I did, like joke you made about your daughter and braces. When you come up with this material, what do? You write it in your phone? You have a notepad in your back pocket? I mean, how do you store this material when something clicks?
I mainly just I hope it's funny enough that I won't forget it.
Mm.
And then sometimes I'll put it in my phone, or usually I'll write it down on a piece of paper, and then I'll try it. And if it works relatively good enough, or I think there's a chance, then I'll try it 3 or 4 times. And in the meantime, I record all my sets. So I listen to it and I'll write in my notebook how I think it should go. And then we try it like 3 or 4 times, and some jokes work right away. And some jokes, instantly as you're saying it, like, this is shit. Why did I ever think this was funny? And they go away. And some jokes you hold on to forever, like herpes, and they never go away. And they never really work, but you just keep some of your friends, your favorite jokes are the jokes they love are the ones that work once a year, but you do them for them when they could show up in town. But I basically, yes, my writing thing, I basically, when I think something's funny, I'll be like, I should say this on stage, or I should write this down. And then hopefully I'll remember it, or I'll put it on my phone, or I'll write it on a piece of paper. And I'll usually try to on my wife sometimes, or I don't know, I might soft land it with my wife or my daughter or a friend of mine, but usually I'll just try it on stage.
Okay, and so a few months back, we had May Planner on our podcast, who's the wife of Mark Norman, and she said that Mark has like a notepad in his back pocket at all times. Whenever something comes in his head, he jots it down, and it's like she said it was super like unorganized and crazy. Is that a common thing? Do most of these comedians have these little things that they kind of just stick with, or it's more everyone kind of has the same way of going about things?
Well, I think everybody has their own way of doing things, but I think there really are 2 different types of comics. There are the guys that write and the kind that don't. And Norman, who's absolutely one of the greatest comedians out there right now, his process must be he thinks of something and he writes it down like I do. But some people, they go and physically try to write something. And unless I'm working on a television show or writing for somebody else on a project, I can't do that. And as a matter of fact, you can tell when I try to write a joke from scratch or near scratch, it's terrible. You can sniff it out on me. Even if I try to make it better, too much better, put too much seasoning in it, it's like, well, it must not have been that good from the beginning if I got to work on it that hard.
And who are some other comics who that don't write down jokes?
Well, Bill doesn't really, I mean, he might write down like before a show, he might just sit in the green room like, okay, I'm gonna remember to do like these 3 ideas or 5 ideas or whatever. My great friend Paul Versi, he doesn't write down jokes, like write them out. Unless he's working on a special or trying to figure something out. I don't really know, because I'll tell you, I've been doing this 26 years now.
Yeah.
Maybe 27. I do the math. So I'm not in the trenches like I used to be like the first 10 years in San Francisco, where how everybody does everything because you're all best friends going to every open mic together and bar gig and showcase Sundays and Monday, Tuesdays at Cobb's. Like I don't know all my friends' processes, but I just know my best friends. That's Bill and Verzi, and that's kind of what they do.
And we mentioned like the Marks of the world, obviously an up and coming young comic. Are there any other
up and coming? He's pretty goddamn up there now.
Yeah, yeah. Are there these up and coming comics that you got your eyes on that you think have a bright future ahead of them?
Young guys who I think have I mean, do you guys know who Ian Bagg is? He's getting famous. He's a friend of mine. He just celebrated 400,000 YouTube followers, but he's been headlining major clubs for years, but he's finally starting to get to the top of the mountain there. Paul Verzi is really starting to blow up. My good friend Paul. Sam Tripoli, I love Sam Tripoli. He's out there a lot, and there's just so many. I mean, there's a million comics. I can just name all my friends, but those 3 I would definitely check out.
And
I know I'm forgetting somebody I don't want to forget, but I can name everybody I know.
Well, that's one of the cool
I'm
things.
only friends with funny people, guys.
Yeah.
The worst is when you're friends with somebody not funny, then they want a favor from me. It's like, what am I supposed to do now?
Yeah, right. But Joe, that's one of the great things about shows like Kill Tony is that it gives these young guys an opportunity to perform in front of guys like Joe Rogan, Tony Hinchcliffe. Have you watched episodes of Kill Tony?
I've seen it like once or twice when they were in LA. I mean, I get it. It's an open mic and then they rip on the people, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's good. It's a great idea, and it worked out well for Tony and Red Band, who I love. Red Band, he's a great guy. So I'm happy for them.
Yeah, it's very funny. All right, Joe, let's talk some hockey, right?
All right, are you guys Panther fans?
Blackhawks fans.
Oh, there we go. The Hawks.
The Hawks. So you're the host of the Puck Off podcast. Obviously, you love hockey. Obviously, you keep up with it very closely. Why don't you tell us what's going on in the NHL this time of the year?
What you want to know?
Like what are some hot topics, like some stories? Who's leading the league? Who looks good? A little bit of everything.
Hot topics would be that the Boston Bruins, after winning the President's Trophy with the most points ever last year and then losing in the first round to Florida, who just barely snuck in, they're still playing great, even though their two top centers retired, one being Hall of Famer Patrice Bergeron. They're still in the mix. The New York Rangers are also playing great right now. They just beat Boston, and it's always good when the Rangers are a good team because they're the biggest market on earth. Toronto's Big Four's a little shaky right now, but William Nylander, when the Toronto went over and played in Sweden, he had two big games as a native Swede. Well, I guess he's American because his father was his dad was a NHLer. Ovechkin's off to a slow start in his chase for Wayne Gretzky's all-time goal. He only has 4 goals right now, so he's a little bit behind his little pace that he's usually on for scoring about 40 to 50 a year. The Penguins, my team, Sid and Gino, they're hot and cold. They either play great, they've beaten some great teams. They've beaten Vegas, they've beaten Colorado, they've blanked Washington, they've beat a bunch of good teams, and the Kings, and then they lose to lowly teams. So they're kind of up and down team. And out west, the Kings are playing great hockey. My mistress team. Vancouver's come out of kind of nowhere. They've kind of got it together under Rick Tocchet, the new coach. The Vegas Golden Knights are still very good. Colorado's getting it together. Dallas is the other good team in the Central. And your team, the Chicago Blackhawks, look fantastic as far as their rookie sensation, Connor Bedard, is fantastic. He's going to be the rookie of the year. And he looks like he's stepping right in. Some guys have a little trouble stepping in the league at 18. He is not, and he is the closest thing to Sidney Crosby I have seen. And Sidney's only been the best player and maybe cracking Mount Rushmore of Gretzky or Lemieux and Gordie Howe. So Sid's cracking that little Mount Rushmore. And Detroit Red Wings finally have kind of pieced it together, and they may be making the playoffs for the first time in about 7-8 years. So is that a good roundup for you?
That's amazing.
Oh, and Tampa Bay is playing great hockey. I love watching Tampa Bay. They have the Hall of Fame power play, and that's always fun to watch.
Now, Joe, how old were you when you got into hockey?
Oh, I was born into it. My grandfather was a huge Pittsburgh Penguins fan when they stunk, when they only wore blue, not as like a novelty act. And they before Lemieux came, my grandfather was a huge Penguin fan. So
that was impressive how you just went through the whole league like that. So
I skipped like 10 teams. But we can hit them.
But obviously they're not that relevant. We used to love the Blackhawks, early 2010s when we had a little dynasty going. But
that was incredible. The best hockey I've ever seen was the Kings versus the Blackhawks in those Western Conference Finals.
Yeah, it's
incredible
been tough
hockey
to watch the last few years. But I guess while we're on the topic of sports, answer me this: are the Steelers the worst 7-4 team of all time?
Probably. I mean, they're definitely not good. They have about 4 guys. They have maybe 5 or 6 good guys who make 3 or 4 big plays every week, and then somehow they win. Although that was a better question for last week because Kenny Pickett actually made some throws this week and and they caught the ball and they got Freiermuth back. He had a good game at tight end at 100 yards. I love Najee from Alabama. He had some good runs. And I know Cincinnati stinks when Burrow being hurt, but they look decent this weekend. So we shall see.
Well, it's funny how Matt Canada gets fired, and it's the first time they've put up 400 offensive yards in the last 44 games.
Yeah, because it's almost like he just refused to throw the ball to the tight end over the middle.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, I don't know if Pickett was like slow quitting like the kids of your generation do or whatever, but I mean, he was the week before that. Pickett was terrible. Now, I've never thought he should have been a number one pick, and I never. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, because I see a little mute thing up there. So I don't know. I never thought he was like a number one pick level quarterback, but I didn't think he was awful. But man, last week he was just awful, like terrible. Like you gotta quit. And then this week he played pretty good. So who knows? I mean, it's typical Tomlin. We'll get into the playoffs and lose in the first round, but he's never had a losing season. So good on him.
Better than the Bears.
Well, Tomlin's the best coach Monday through Saturday.
Tomlin's a dog. He really is. Gets those guys ready.
Yeah, I love him. He's not a good in-game coach. Like, how do you not challenge the touchdown? Like, it was a touchdown. The guy caught it, took 3 steps, and they said no touchdown, and he didn't challenge it. But I really do I love Tom. I really do. But man, some of his coaching decisions, I don't know what he's doing.
You think at this point in time, the Steelers creep into the playoff picture?
Oh, they're in right now. They're like the 5th seed.
Let me rephrase. You think by January they're in the playoff picture?
Yes, because their schedule is so easy that barring TJ Watt, knock on wood, getting hurt, I don't. Cause they're going to get Minka back too. Minka's I think going to play next week, but so barring Watt getting hurt, I think they're going to. I mean, they're already 7-4, and they only have like 2 more hard games, so which is great for me because I took the over.
Yeah, we have an over bet on the Packers right now, who got a great win for us this past Thursday in Detroit. So we're hoping they can creep out.
You guys are Bears fans betting the Green Bay Packer over. You gotta rip up your Bears fan club cards, man.
Yeah, well, first year without Rodgers, Jordan Love, they still it's the same team without Rodgers. I don't know. We got some other things too, but that was one we're getting excited about now.
So it's safe to say then you think the Penguins will win a Stanley Cup before the Steelers win their next Super Bowl?
That's a good question. I think this I think the Steelers, if you put a gun to my head, I would think the Steelers would win the Super Bowl before the Penguins win the Stanley Cup again.
How much time does Sydney have left?
Sid probably has 3 or 4 more years. I don't see the Penguins winning the cup with this group. And I think there's a luck chance the Steelers may win the Super Bowl. I don't think all the luck in the world can help the Penguins win 4 rounds. If you're asking me who would win, who's going to win more, who's going to get to the conference finals first, I'd say the Penguins. But because I think, a lucky break here and there in the next 3 or 4 years might happen for them. Where the Steelers, I don't see them getting that. I don't know. I don't see this. I don't see the Penguins winning 4 rounds in the playoffs in the foreseeable future. But I can see the Steelers luckily winning 3 playoff games.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Especially if they get a new quarterback.
Yeah.
Joe, this has been fun, but before we wrap this up, I want to ask you a few rapid fire questions before we part ways here. So let me start with this one. Would you rather give up caffeine or alcohol?
Oh, caffeine.
Caffeine? Why?
What do they do without booze?
All right, next one. Would you rather go?
I can always find something to wake. I can always wake up.
Would you rather go on Joe Rogan's show or have him on your show?
I'll go on his show, I guess.
Okay. Favorite comedy special of all time?
Well, since I already listed Eddie Murphy Delirious, I will say the only two comedy specials that I think are 100 out of 100 are Delirious and Chris Rock Bring the Pain.
And I guess now, while we're on topic, this wasn't one of the questions, but what's the best current comedy special out?
I don't know. I mean, I love Verzi's, you know. Shane Gillis has a good one. I don't want to name all my friends. I mean, I don't want to name. I'm friends with all these guys. I don't want to leave anybody out. I thought Chappelle's last two specials were brilliant. I think Bill's last special was. I think Bill and Chappelle's last two specials were brilliant, back to back.
What's your dream collab?
You mean what do you mean?
Someone for you to collaborate with.
Who would I collaborate with?
Yeah.
Maybe be in a Martin Scorsese movie.
Okay, that's a great answer. And last one. This is something I heard you say. If someone says you remind me of my uncle, is that a diss or a compliment?
It depends how old they are.
All right. Well, Joe, this has been a lot of fun for us. We know you're extremely busy, so appreciate
I
you.
hope you guys had a good time. I don't want to waste your time. You guys
No.
such nice kids.
and Joe,
Taking away from his schoolwork.
Why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you any upcoming shows you have, all that kind of information.
I'm at joebartnick.com. I'm going to be on a big tour this spring. So check out those dates, should be up soon. I'm getting a whole new website soon. I have a Joe Bartnick. I'm getting a new YouTube channel too. I think Joe Bartnick Comedy on YouTube, and Mr. Joe Bartnick on Instagram, and I'm just Joe Bartnick on Twitter and Facebook.
Awesome. And guys, if you haven't watched his comedy special yet, A Killing Chicago, need a good laugh, tap into that. It's very funny.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's on All Things Comedy's YouTube page or Prime, Amazon Prime.
All right, guys. Joe Bartnick, thank you very much.
Oh, thanks for having me.